What's up, Bears fans? Welcome back to another edition, Willis Twin Towers podcast. As you can see, my partner isn't here with us at the moment. Tim, he may or may not be showing up tonight, guys. Let's hope he does. But he's dealing with let's just say he's on his own tonight. His wife is out of town. He's trying to put one of his kids to sleep, and he's got 4 boys. So I can tell you from firsthand experience with them kids, I know it's hard to do sometimes. So we'll see if he makes it or not. But in any case, we appreciate you guys being here as always, live on Friday nights. Before we get started, a quick reminder, as always, to please like the video, subscribe to our channel. We're at Barroom Network here on YouTube or wherever you get your podcast from, whether it be Apple, Spotify, wherever that may be. We have lots of content outside of just this show. So go ahead and feel free to check us all out because we got a lot of great stuff here every week. So, and you can also follow us all on X or Twitter. My handle is @_Jeff Willis. If Tim ever shows up, his is at Tim Willis 24, and you can follow our executive producer Aldo Gandia. He is at Barroom Network. J2K wants to know if I choked Tim out. Not this time, J2K, but when we were kids, that kind of stuff happened often. That's all we did when we were young is fight, and as we got older, we wrestled and stuff. Because we actually competitively wrestled, so we were very rarely, as we got older in the same weight class, but as we were kids, we wrestled each other in tournaments all the time. I mean, all the time. So there was a lot of, I don't know if the animosity is the word, but there was definitely a lot. I feel like we definitely wrestled a little bit harder against each other than we wrestled against some other kids a lot of times. So, when we're young, it's a little unfortunate that's the case, but that's, sometimes that's how it is. So, but anyways, there's a lot to go through here this week. I want to really dig into just kind of mostly positive stuff. I want to talk about the way that OTAs have been going so far, but I do want to kind of nip in the bud a couple of the negative topics that have come up in the last couple weeks here and just address them real quick. I don't want to spend a bunch of time on them. And as always, guys, before I get into this stuff, a quick reminder, to please, any kind of questions, comments you have, anything you want to talk about, feel free to throw it in the chat. I'd love to answer your questions for you or dig into any topics you want to discuss. I'll probably spend the last 15 or 20 minutes or so of the show digging into some pop culture and stuff, maybe talking about bands and whatnot. You can see I've got my Rush shirt on today, so I might talk about some stuff like that here at the end. But like I said, as always, please feel free to come in with any questions you have, any comments, concerns about the Bears, anything that's gone on the last week you want to talk about, and I'll do my best to get them on the screen for you and talk them through with you guys. So. But like I said, real quick, I want to just nip in the bud a couple of things that have been discussed over the last couple of weeks here. Tim and I on the show last week did talk about the Seth Wickersham story that came out. He's got that book that's coming out soon. I believe it's in July that the book is actually coming out. But in any case, the intro to the story, there was a few pieces that were thrown out there to obviously engage people to go out and buy the book and check it out, and to really obviously just stir up a little bit of controversy to cause you to want to go read the book. So a lot of the stuff that was talked about was quarterback related, from what I understand. The whole book might be quarterback related, but there were excerpts in there about Caleb Williams, like I said, as we talked about last week. Things about how he didn't want, when the draft first came out. Before I even start, Greg, our resident scout here, who was in the NFL for 30 plus years as a scout and as a personnel director with the Bears and other teams like the Bills and Eagles and Giants, he knows the stuff. He has his connections in the league. He told us last year before the draft there were some rumors going around, some talk, some things about Caleb that were a little bit concerning, some things that that were said about him that he may or may not want to do, and, things of that nature. And yes, apparently it come to find out that was true. And now it's the story all of a sudden because that book is coming out, So that being said, the name of the book, thank you, Aldo, for putting this on the screen, is American Kings, a biography of the quarterback, and it will be released in September. Thank you for that. September 9th of 2025. That's this year, obviously. So I was wrong about July, but it is coming out in September. I'm sure I'll be reading the book myself, just to at least see what else is going on with the other quarterbacks in the league, and also to dig into that whole excerpt, see exactly what happened with Caleb, just for my own curiosity. But before, I'm not really all that concerned with it. Just to bottom line this thing, I told you guys that last week. I don't see a big concern about it right now, and I'm going to put it really simply in a second here why. But just to backtrack a little bit, The story came out, talked about how he didn't necessarily want to go to the Bears at first. He really hit it off with Kevin O'Connell, wanted to go to the Vikings. Then once he did meet with the Bears finally at the combine, and then they brought him in for the 30 visit, he told it. Now, this is his dad trying to orchestrate this stuff. They hired an agency to see if there was a way they could maybe influence being able to go to a different team. And this isn't exactly something that hasn't been done before, guys. I was just watching, again, I watched this documentary a couple times in the past, but I wanted to watch it after that story came out. There was an ESPN 30 for 30 about the 1983 draft called Elway to Marino. And, John Elway is a perfect example of this. He didn't want to play for the Colts, and I couldn't blame him for that. And what he did was he told them the whole time, like, I'm not going to go there. If you guys draft me, I'm going to go play baseball for the Yankees because they drafted him to play baseball there. So he had leverage. He said, I'm not going to go there if you guys draft me. Well, this has happened in the past too. Eli Manning was another example of this. He didn't want to go play for the Chargers. And Archie Manning, his dad, found a way to make it work to where the Giants end up making a trade with the Chargers, and Phillip Rivers ended up going to New York, and Eli went to the Giants, and the rest is history. So these things have happened in the past. Caleb didn't go that far. Once he came in for his 30 visit and the combine visit and all that, he decided this is where he wanted to be, and he told his dad that, like, I want to be a Bear. This is what I want to do. So Aldo mentioned, should Caleb Williams address the media to clear things up? He ducked out on Wednesday when he could have. I think he probably should have. I think there's a reason behind it. My guess is because he doesn't know exactly how he wants to respond yet, and he's trying to take his time with this to figure out, because this book is going to come out in September anyway. So if it's not going to be a talking point when Caleb discusses it in a press conference, then it's going to be a talking point again in September. So my guess is he's going to come out at some point between now and then and put it to bed. D. Levine, that's a really good way to put it. And that was like, ears ringing when you said that Caleb should put it to bed. I think that's what will happen. If I was Caleb's old man, as he says, I wouldn't want him coming to the Bears either. Who are we kidding? Why are people shocked? I agree with that. That's what we all said. It wasn't a great situation. What he said was that's where quarterbacks go to die. Muhsin Muhammad said that about receivers about the Bears back in the day. So, but it's the same thing with quarterbacks. I mean, how many successful quarterbacks have we had in the history of this franchise outside of Sid Luckman? Zero. So we got to consider these things. Any dad that cares about his kid is going to want his kid to be in the best possible situation for him. Now, again, going back to Caleb, to be fair to the kid, he went back and said, I want to be here. This is what I want to do. Ever since he's been here, by all accounts, it seems everything everyone said about him, everything we've seen from him, that he's invested in the Bears. This is where he wants to be. And to put it simply, guys, this was a really, I can't remember where I saw, somebody was talking about this earlier. I think it was when I was listening to Greg was on with Swifty earlier, Greg Gabriel, who's on our channel as well. He was on with Swift Sports Network earlier. You should check out his channel as well. Swifty does really good stuff. So he was on there earlier, and I believe it was Swifty that mentioned this. Caleb came up with the bear claw. He says "da Bears" at the end of every press conference. He doesn't have to do that. Why would he do that if he wasn't invested in being here and didn't want to be here now? This is where he's at. This is what he wants to do. Again, before the draft, I'm sure he did have some reservations about it. Who wouldn't in that situation? Think about it from this perspective. If you weren't a Bears fan, right? If you were just a football player in his perspective, okay, just coming out of college, any team could take you before you knew how the draft was going to fall. You're trying to picture it your junior year, like how this could work. Who's going to take me, who I could possibly play for. These kinds of things are all going to come into effect, right? So think about it from that angle, like you don't have a favorite team. If you're in his shoes and you're going into the draft, wouldn't you want to go to a team that you feel like is going to give you the best possible chance for your personal success? We've seen it time and time again. We've said it time and time again. When quarterbacks go to bad situations, a lot of times it doesn't work out for them. When quarterbacks go to good situations, it can work out for them in a way that, like, maybe it wouldn't have worked out if they went to a different spot, okay? And some guys are just transcendent. They'll work out wherever they go, but that's a rarity. There's not a lot of guys who are like that. So what you have to understand is situation absolutely does matter. Joe Montana being a third-round pick, going to San Francisco and playing for Bill Walsh was a great thing for him, okay? Playing in that system was excellent for him, and it suited his strengths, and it made him a great player. Cliff makes a great point. Dads do that. Again, that's exactly what I was saying. Dads will do that for their kids. They will go back and make sure they're putting their kids in the best possible positions for themselves. So again, J2K, I kind of tend to agree with this too, though, J2K. He sounds like his dad did a little too much talking. Caleb's probably a little embarrassed or even pissed he had to deal with the backlash. Yes. Who was it I was listening to earlier was saying, why would you discuss this with a writer? That's the one thing that I kind of agree with in this whole thing. Okay. Like if that's the case, if you feel all that way, fine. I get it. Why are you talking about it with a writer though? The only thing that I can think of that would make logical sense to me of why you would talk about this with a writer or someone who's going to get a story up there about it is because you want to maybe prevent this situation in the future from happening to other kids and other individuals, to shed light on these situations, to make sure that that other kids are getting put into better situations for themselves, which is understandable, But again, it's like there's a reason these teams are picking at the top of the order because they're the worst teams. So you're going to a lot of times go into a bad situation. It's just the way it is. I mean, unfortunately, that's why they are where they are. But those teams should be doing everything they can to put infrastructure around those kids, and that doesn't always happen. So that's a big part of the problem too. So in any case, I don't want to spend a ton of time on this because we did talk about it last week. But again, just to nip it in the bud, it's clear that Caleb wants to be here now. Look no further than the claw and how he says "Da Bears" at the end of every press conference. It's as simple as that, really, to me. So let's just, obviously hope for the best this year. Let's see how he does. Let's just anticipate that, what we've expected to see, which is this great coaching staff we've seen brought in. Again, this is all on paper. This is all our anticipation. We see this and we look and say, look, everything that's happened so far, it feels good. It feels optimistic. It's different than what we've seen in the past with this team, with other coaching staffs and whatnot. So I just feel like this is a turning point. I hope this is a turning point. King Booker World, I mentioned something going back to what I was talking about a minute ago. What keeps being left out, that part of the end when Caleb said, I think I can change it. I want to be a Bear. And I did kind of allude to that a little bit earlier. I didn't use the exact quote. But yes, I mean, really, we've seen that. He clearly wants to be here now. And again, after the combine, after the top 30 visit, in the story, it says that he had decided that he wants to be here. And that is part of the story. So we can't ignore that. He wants to be here now. And all we can hope for is that this coaching staff is going to get the best out of him and everybody else on the team. And that's kind of what I want to transition into now, because from what I've seen so far in OTAs, from what we keep hearing about, from the reporters that have been there, is that things are different. The coaching staff here is doing things differently. You can even see it in the press conferences, just the way that they're not afraid to discuss things. Ben Johnson at the podium, for instance, okay, he was asked about like injuries and a couple other things. What was the one? There was one injury asked about Luther Burden. He flat out said there's a soft tissue thing. We don't really know when we expect to have him back. Matt Eberflus would have not responded like that. He would have said something along the lines of, we don't have to discuss injuries right now, so we're not going to discuss injuries right now. Or he would have just flat out ignored the question kind of thing. So, and look, I see you guys talking about winning in here and how that's the only thing that matters. And I 100% agree with you guys. I mean, obviously these things can't happen until the season starts. We can't really know, whether this is going to work or not, whether this coaching staff is going to work or not, whether they're going to develop this team the right way, whether Caleb is going to take that step or not until we see games played on the grass. So I understand that. The whole point, though, is, we have to talk about something here. So I choose to be optimistic in what I'm discussing here as opposed to the negativity because, again, because it is different. And I have been negative about some things in the past with this team because it was warranted. And again, I'm not going to sit here and say this team's going to go out and win 12, 13 games this year. I'm not going to say that. What I am going to say is I do expect to see improvement. I wouldn't be surprised if they started out a little slow, especially offensively, because it does take these things time to get going, especially early in the year. A lot of teams across the league, it's not just teams with a new coaching staff. It takes them a little bit of time to get their offenses going sometimes. It's just part of it. It's just part of the deal. It's part of the timing and everything like that. So some teams get it going right away, but that's not always the case. And it's usually not the case. So we have to consider that. We also have to consider, again, it is a brand new coaching staff bringing in a brand new offense, brand new defense. Everything's going to be different. So could they start slow? Yes. Would I be surprised? No. Do I hope they won't? Yeah, of course. I want them to start fast. They got a tough slate right off the bat. So, I do think, and I agree 100% with this King Booker world. I don't know what the record will be, but I believe we will see a better on-field product. 100%, especially once we get into the latter half of the season and we start to see what this team really is, what their identity is, what kind of team what they're really made of, I guess is what I should say. So I think once we get to that point, we will know. I mean, I absolutely think we're going to see a better product on the field. And, there's a lot of people saying that Caleb has no excuses. Tim's even said it on his podcast at least once or twice, that he's going to have no excuses. They've made all these moves around him. They've done everything they can to support him and put infrastructure around him. They fixed the offensive interior about as best as they could, really. I mean, bringing in an all-pro and Joe Tooney, locking him down to a 2-year extension that just happened recently in the last week. They brought in the best center on the market, and Drew Dahlman signed with a 3-year contract. They're traded for Jonah Jackson, a guy who's played under Ben Johnson before. He knows what he's getting with him. And then Darnell Wright's a good, solid right tackle. If not, he's an ascending right tackle who could one day be great. And then they've got some options on the left side. It's an intriguing little battle they're going on. So I think the offensive line is much improved. The weapons are improved. We have they used a 1st-round pick and a 2nd-round pick on offensive weapons. They used a 7th-round pick on a guy who is vastly under. I don't know if he's underrated, but he was definitely underdrafted because of how deep the class was. And Kyle Monangai, who I think is going to be a good player, and he will certainly be a part of the mix right off the bat, in my opinion. And also, just again, the way that Ben Johnson, who is a guy who we've seen in the last few years, is clearly an offensive innovator, probably the best one in the league. He's the best played caller in the league. He has been over the past couple of years now. Best played designer in the league over the past couple of years. I think we should give them the benefit of the doubt that they're going to play better this year. And the defense even, I don't think they're going to take a step back here because Dennis Allen's a proven defensive coach, and I think he's going to put these guys in a position to succeed as well. Maybe even more so than Fluston. And he's not going to be afraid to be aggressive. That's the biggest thing to me, is going to be the big difference for the defense. Flus, a lot of times, the biggest problem I had with him in his calling of the defense, I had a lot of problems with him outside of that, but just as in terms of him as calling the defense, he got way too soft on 3rd down a lot of times. He just, especially in like 3rd and long situations, he would just say, let's sit back and cover, play soft zone, and just hope we can get there with 4. And a lot of times it didn't work out, especially, in the first year he started calling plays when Alan Williams was fired. So going back to Williams now, Dennis Allen, this guy is going to pressure a hell of a lot more, and he's way more exotic about it. And he's going to bring some aggression on the defensive front. We've already heard him talk about versatility among his defensive players. He's even said at the podium, we're going to move Kyler Gordon around, see if we can work him at safety and some other spots outside boundary, corner, obviously. And he's going to play the slot. But also, edge rusher from last year, Daniel Hardy. He was a guy who spent some time in a practice squad. But when he does get into games, he's always an impactful player. And he has some real pass rush juice. They're working him at Sam linebacker. So they obviously see something there from this kid to where they see, a potential to get him more usage on the field outside of just special teams and situational pass rush situations. Now they must think, well, hey, maybe we have a better shot at him stopping the run as a Sam linebacker, or maybe dropping him back off into coverage a little bit. And look at that. Stash Boy is here. Just as I'm getting a little bit more into practice, I wanted to get into stuff I really wanted to talk about. So, Tim, before you get started with anything you wanted to mention, just a quick synopsis of what I went over today. I was talking about the Wickersham article and the negativity behind it. And I know we talked about that some last week, but I just basically wanted to put it to bed because if there's any doubt that Caleb wanted to be here right now, look no further than the Bear Claw and the fact that he says "Da Bears" at the end of every single press conference he does. So to me, that's a simple way to say he clearly wants to be here. King Book World says you're Tim 1974 Willis with that stash, Tim. I think you really need it to be thicker and a little bit longer if you really want to make it a real stash. But
I'm fine the way it looks.
Well, if you like it, you like it. But Cliff says 2 good bands represented. Absolutely. Led Zeppelin's the greatest band of all time, and Rush is the shit too. So, and we're going to talk about that, but we'll talk about it later. We're going to dig into it about 15 minutes left in the show. So, but anyways, Tim, I want to dig into practice and this coaching staff. I've been talking about optimism a little bit now for the last few minutes and how I feel like it's just different. There's a different aura, the way they're conducting practice, the way they talk in press conferences. For instance, how Ben Johnson mentioned, that with the injury to Luther Burden, he flat out came out and said he's got a soft tissue thing. We don't know when he's going to be back. Flus would have swept it right under the rug. He probably wouldn't even answered the question. So it's just different. There's a different aura on the field. We can see it. And the thing I really wanted to dig into was the accountability aspect. We've heard guys talking about this throughout the week, and just the one instance in particular that I can think of is everybody keeps talking about how there was an instance in practice where Cole Kmet lined up in the wrong spot. And apparently Ben Johnson let him have it. Let him have it about being in the wrong spot. And what I want to know is exactly what happened, exactly what he said, what they mean by letting him have it. But of course, reporters, they're not going to come on the podcast like I would and say, fuck this shit, this is fucking stupid. I'm not afraid to do that. They might be, you know what I mean? So maybe that's why they don't want to use the language that was used. I don't know. But the whole point of this is, I think it's interesting that he's coming out and doing this. And there was somebody else who was I listening to? I think it was Greg even that was talking about this earlier in the week, that sometimes when you're in practice throughout the day, things are going wrong throughout the day, and you're not really necessarily going off on somebody about a small thing here and there throughout the day. But then as the day accumulates, something happens at the end. Now it just is boiled over, and you're like, okay, I got to say something about this now because it's enough is enough kind of thing. I don't know if that's the case because this coaching staff has been pretty persistent that they're going to be on the details about everything. So I think, in my opinion, it's not that. I don't think it was because there's other stuff going on in practice that made it to where over time it boiled over and now he just happens to go off on Cole. I think it's one, because Kmet's a leader and can take it. And exactly that. He's a leader. You want the rest of the team to see, if this guy can get my wrath, so can the rest of us. If he ain't going to fucking do it right, and I'm going to get on him about doing it right, you best believe if you don't fucking do it right, I'm going to get on you about doing it right. So it's a standard. It is a standard. And they've talked about this from the beginning. A standard they are going to set. Details are going to be important. So Cole Kmet, I think, again, being a Notre Dame fan and seeing how this kid's been his whole career, I think he's going to be just fine. I don't think this has anything to do with oh my God, does Ben Johnson not like Cole Kmet? He's going to get benched in week 1 for Loveland. I don't think it's like that. We've talked about this before too. They're going to play together. It's a complementary thing. Again, I think he is showing everybody on the team, look, we're going to do this shit the way I fucking say we're going to do it. And there's a reason we're going to do it. And another thing that's important real quick, Tim, and I'll let you say your thing, is I can't remember who it was that was talking about this, but this coaching staff is being it was one of the players at one of their press conferences was talking about this coaching staff is they will let you know exactly what it is that they're looking for. And they're going to tell you why they want it. Not every coaching staff is going to do that. Not everybody's going to tell you, this is what you need to do. They're just going to say that. They're going to say, this is what you got to do, and that's why. That's all there is to it. Just do what I say. These guys are saying, this is what we want, and this is why we want it. And players nowadays, they want that. Young kids nowadays, they want that. It's not like how it was even when I was younger, where it's like, you just do what you're fucking told sometimes. They want to know why they're doing what they're doing. And I totally understand why. It makes perfect sense why they'd want to know why. And I do appreciate the staff telling them why. And I think in a lot of cases, the reason that people didn't tell why is because they didn't fucking exactly know why themselves. They think they know why, but they don't know how to explain it. So this coaching staff is so detailed and they know exactly what they want, that they know exactly how to say it and tell them why they want it. So again, that is different. And that to me is impressive in and of itself. And it makes me optimistic and hopeful. So Tim, what do you got to say outside of responding to Antmus saying that you're about to hit Studio 54 with a fat bag of blow?
Well, first, can you all hear me? Can you guys hear me well? Okay.
You're crackling,
sorry for being.
we can hear you.
I'm sorry for being late, guys.
Well, you kind of sound like shit, Tim. It's a little crackly. It's probably your headphones. See if you can switch to your. See if you can switch to your mic.
Hang on.
But anyways, there's another comment here that was really funny. Let me see if I can find it. I lost it. But anyways,
can you guys hear me now?
Yeah, that's a lot better. It's a lot better.
That's weird. Normally those are really good. I can't hear you all that great, so I'll bear with me. Okay, so wow, that's a lot to unpack here. So my take on this is similar to what you said. Cole Kmet was a captain last year. He just wants the players to know, like, I'm going to be on the details. I'm going to be on all of you guys. I'm not afraid to get onto your captain. I'm not afraid to get onto one of your leaders. And I don't think he was picking on Cole by any means. I think it was just he is on the details. And if Cole's not on the details, then he's going to get after him. So,
well, real quick, I'm sorry to cut you off, but just real fast. In the press conference, he was talking about, I think it was Adam Hogue asked him something like, you seem like you're agitated at practice. He's like, I seem agitated. I think that's just pretty normal for me. That's just how we are. So to me, like, that's, again, like you said, I don't think he's picking on Cole. I just think that's how they are. That's how they're going to do things. Go ahead, Tim.
Hang on a second.
Now you need a break. But yeah, I think that's just how they are. I think that's just how they're going to coach this team. They're going to be on them about everything. They're going to be on them about the details. Everything's going to have to be right. And I can't remember who it was. I think it was on Hogan Johns. I was hearing him talk about. It's not like Cole was like 10 to 15 yards off his mark or something when he lined up wrong, but it was enough to where they were like, this is not fucking right. We need, we got to do it right. And I don't know if that's exactly what they said, because again, nobody's telling us exactly what was said. All we keep hearing is that he got on him. So are you good now, Tim? Can you talk?
I guess I can't hear you all that great. I can hear what you're saying, but it's really quiet. But in any case, as long as you guys can hear me, it's all right, because I hear you well enough. Okay, so like I said, just getting onto a leader, letting everybody know, like what you had said earlier. But in his press conference, he had said, I may have raised my voice a little bit, but it wasn't intentional. He said it's just loud in there, and sometimes you got to raise your voice so that everybody can hear you. Like I said, I don't think he was picking on Cole. It just, he's going to be on him. He's going to be on everybody, and they love that so far. They've all mentioned that. Everybody that we've heard speak has said glowing things about Ben Johnson, how he's going to be on him, and that's a good thing. That's what they want. These guys have been clamoring for hard coaching for a full season now. It's been a year. It just goes to show how bad things were in the Matt Eberflus era, which is sad. I mean, really. I mean, I don't understand why, if these guys are clamoring for this, why aren't you changing what you're doing? Why are you continuing the same old song and dance? And it's clearly not working. To me, it's being a high school coach and coaching, my son's travel team and all of these other things. You realize pretty quickly that adapt or die. I mean, anybody remember that quote from Moneyball? I mean, Brad Pitt, he was starring as
Billy Bean.
Yes, Billy Bean. Thank you. And he just makes it known, like, we have to adapt or we're never going to continue on the right trajectory. Like, this is the way we did things before. It ain't working. This is the new path. Similar thing as a coach in sports. If you don't adapt to how things are being done, you're going to fail. You have to get with the times. You have to adapt to situations. And you have to adapt to coaching each individual player. Not everybody's always going to be the same. It's not a cookie cutter league. No, nobody is. So, again, I don't understand what was so difficult about that. If it's not working, make an adjustment. And if you don't make an adjustment, you were never fit to be a coach to begin with. That goes for being a coordinator or a position coach. It doesn't matter. You have to be willing to adapt your coaching style. And these coaches that have been around for forever have done that. And that's why they're having success to this day still, is because they have not been afraid to adapt. I went on a little tangent with that, but again, to me, this situation, this is what we've been hoping for. I think it's only going to be better. Obviously, these guys are going to be more on the details. I would almost guarantee the stupid penalties will be eliminated compared to what they were last year. For somebody who was so adamant about not being penalized, he sure didn't get these guys to not get penalized. It makes no sense. I don't know if it was preparation or they were just not on it, not on their stuff. I don't know. But regardless, that's all in the past. Just like this whole Caleb thing is all in the past. I just want to move on because I want this team to finally get to where I think they can go. They have everything they need at this point, in my opinion. Do I think that they're necessarily a Super Bowl contender? No. Do they have the pieces to be one? Absolutely. It's just a matter of getting everything to gel and click and go on. Survive and advance. But again, it's going to remain to be seen until that happens. But I have more confidence in this coaching staff than I've had in any coaching staff for the Chicago Bears since I've been alive, with the exception of Lovie Smith. And honestly, most of us didn't have that kind of faith in Lovie Smith until he proved that he had it, that he was the guy. And we had to see it to believe it first. But there's just something different about it this time. It just feels different. We did not say this at all when Flus was hired. Most of us were like, that's the guy they hired? They could have had anybody and they picked him? Again, this is not that situation anymore. And I feel really good about this. I just really hope that my feelings play out and we're right. That's what I hope for. Jeff, I don't know what other topics you had to discuss today, where you're at. I mean, we've talked a little bit earlier, but I kind of want to get further into this. I don't want to harp too much on that. I really want to, and I really don't want to get into the Caleb stuff so much either. I want to know, there's some talk right now about Tremaine and TJ Edwards and who's going to play Sam and who's going to play Will and who's going to play Mike. A lot of people are kind of clamoring for Edmonds to play the Will because of his speed and sideline to sideline. And TJ's ability to cover is better for that Mike linebacker position. My issue with it, Jeff, and I'll let you take the reins here in a second, but just to give you my issue with that is Tremaine has the instincts to play Mike linebacker, but TJ has the coverage skills to play it probably a little bit better than Tremaine. But with his size, it's hard. I'd be hard-pressed to say they should move Tremaine to Will, because you want a guy like that in the middle of the field. And I just like Edwards better as a Will. He reminds me more of Lance Briggs than like a Brian Urlacher. I know that's just one example, but that was the best linebacker tandem in football for several years. And I just like how that fits. So to me, yes, we need to see more out of Tremaine, in my opinion, but I don't know that switching him to Will is necessarily going to bring that out of him. I think just let Dennis Allen coach him in the position that he's been in, where he has had success. It's like I've said countless times on this podcast, he needs to finish better. And I think Dennis Allen will help him do that and put him in position to do that better than he has. But I don't know if I like the idea of them switching, Jeff. I'm not really sure. I'm curious what your stance is on that. And do you think that that's a legitimate possibility at this point?
Well, okay. So I think there's a reason. So there's a reason they're going to do this. Allen obviously feels like this is a better fit. The one thing I would say is I don't necessarily agree that Edwards is better in coverage than Edmonds. Edmonds is damn good in coverage. I think they're just different. Edmonds is more athletic, faster. So I think that's the reason why he's moving to the Will, because he can cover sideline to sideline a little bit better than Edwards. Edwards is very instinctual, which is why he's been able to do it so well. But I think that's going to suit him well at the mic. The biggest difference I would see is, and apparently this isn't as much of an issue to Dennis Allen, or he's going to mitigate in a way that I'm not familiar with, the size that Edmonds has in the middle of the field and the way he was able to take over the middle of the field in the defensive pass game to not really allow much to happen there as far as, offenses being able to get the ball there. So I feel like that's like the biggest difference to me. But really, they're going to be, to me, they're kind of interchangeable. I mean, they're going to use them. I don't know. I feel like there's a reason they're doing it like this with them. I think it's probably the way they're going to suit up in week one. I would imagine that Edmonds will be the Will and Edwards will be the Mike, but they can both play both, I think. So, I mean, really, again, this is what Dennis Allen was talking about from the beginning. They love that versatility. And we want to see if we can get guys to do multiple things, play multiple roles. I mentioned at the top of the show when you weren't here, Daniel Hardy, edge rusher, good special teamer, situational pass rusher. They're playing him at Sam linebacker right now, getting him reps there to see if he can do more. So it's like, they obviously, this is what they want. This is what they're trying to accomplish with these guys. See if they can do more and more and more. Aldo says, Tim, that you look like a guy he bought weed from in the 80s. He looks like guys I bought weed from in the last decade. So it's possible that, nowadays we just recycle old junk like we always do. So in any case, that's pretty damn funny there, though. So anyways, I
can't see your guys' comments, so you'll have to tell me whatever they're saying.
There's some really good questions in here that we're going to get to, a bunch of music questions. And honestly, there's a lot of stuff in here that you guys you're hitting me with that I'm not even sure if I'm all that familiar with all of these. Most of them I am, but any case, there's a couple football questions I want to get to. Let's just go ahead and get to the questions because Tim started a little late and I don't want to hold you guys over too long. So let's get to the questions and we'll dig into some of this music stuff too that you guys are asking about. So first question is from Cliff. Why did it take Poles 3 times to get a staff like this? Well, honestly, Cliff, I don't know. This is all just speculation from us. I mean, part of it is you can't say Poles isn't at fault at all for this stuff because he did hire, Matt Eberflus. Now, I will say Matt Eberflus is the one who hired Shane Waldron. I'm sure that Poles had influence in the hiring process and he was part of the process, but the head coach decides who's going to be on his staff. So that wasn't Matt Eberflus hire. And as I talked about last week, I think that part of the reason he hired Waldron is because, and Courtney Cronin was talking about this on a podcast too, is that he wasn't intimidated by him. He didn't feel threatened by Waldron, like he might take his job if the offense plays really well and the team itself is not doing as well. You know what I mean? They weren't winning as much. So I feel like that's a big part of it. I think that I can't remember where I was going with that, but Tim, what are your thoughts on it? Because that's at the end of the day, that's kind of, that's how I feel about that whole thing in the beginning.
I think it was lack of good candidates wanting to come to Chicago personally. Yeah. I know they interviewed 9 people for it at the time. Who's to say of those 9 they even wanted the position? I think it was just, I don't know if they knew the writing was on the wall for Eberflus come this season, but he obviously didn't have much to show for the direction. And there were probably a lot of rumors and things that these NFL circles talk, they know what's going on. And I'm not so sure that anybody felt confident enough taking this job that he was even going to be there for another season, because he would have had to turn it around after year 3 in order to even keep his job. 3 years is pretty much the what's the word I'm looking for? After 3 years, if you've won or you've not, and after 3, if you haven't won, you're gone. That's kind of the typical way they go about business in the NFL. So
one thing I forgot to say earlier that I meant to is just that we also have to consider when this process first started with Eberflus. They brought in Bill Polian. This is before they even hired Poles. They brought in Bill Polian to help guide their search for a GM and a head coach. And they'd already interviewed Eberflus before they hired Poles. So then Poles gets hired. And yeah, he said, this is my guy and all that. But it's like, full well that there was probably some influence there. And, he probably felt like, this is the guy they want. I should probably hire him just to maybe appease them and make them happy. Maybe they'll let me hire the guy I want later on anyways. But at the same time, again, you can't say he has no blame because he did still hire the guy. And he was obviously part of the process with the offensive coordinator search last time too. But again, this seems to be different. And to answer your question flat out, Cliff, what's different, I think, is that there's he was able to make this decision without any of that influence from the background, from a third-party source coming in or from ownership meddling. And I think Ted Phillips is behind closed doors over the years, had a lot more to say in football decisions and shit than he was leading on anybody else led on. And I think it's good riddance he's finally out the door, because I don't think Kevin Warren is, if he is middling, he actually knows a little bit about football, and it's not stupid shit like with what we saw with Ted Phillips. So go ahead and finish your thought before we go on to the next question.
I was just going to say that I agree with that aspect of it. Yes, I understand where you're coming from, Cliff, and I agree that Poles is not absolved of blame here.
Crackly again.
Hang on. I agree that he's not absolved of blame. Is that better?
That's better, yeah.
I agree that he's not absolved of blame.
Worse. Now it's worse again.
Oh, come on.
Just try to fix it. Try to fix it, and I'll just move on. If you think of your thought, come back to it. But the next question coming from Antmus, he wants to know, how do you think about our right guard situation looking? The left tackle has been overshadowing a lot. The right guard situation, I'm not really concerned about it. Maybe a little bit just because he didn't play as well with the Rams last year, but he did play a different position. And also, we know he has a track record of success with Ben Johnson. If Ben Johnson didn't think he could still play, he wouldn't have brought him in. So obviously, if he looks at, they're watching tape of this guy in LA. So they're watching his tape. If they're obviously not thinking to themselves, man, I don't think he can still do it. They're seeing something on the film that says, yeah, we bring him over here. I put him in my offense. He's going to be just fine. He's going to get the job done for us. So that's obviously what they saw. They have faith in that. And I believe he has an out after not this year, but the following year. I think he's got an out on his contract after 2 years. So, I'm not all that concerned with it. The interior depth, I feel a lot better about now than I did last year. As I said last week on the show, there's a lot better interior depth. I feel like I think Luke Newman is a legitimate depth piece, whether at guard or center. And I think he could legitimately be a backup center in this league. And, he's got real upside where maybe he could be a starter at some point. So I feel a lot better about it than I did last year. And I'm not really all that concerned about right guard. What do you think? Do you have any kind of worries about it, Tim?
Not at all. Not at all. We're going to find out if Jonah Jackson stays healthy, but like I've said before, I'm going to default to Ben Johnson and trust his judgment in the situation. And he wanted him here. That was clearly a Ben Johnson move. He wanted him here. And so I'm going to trust him. And that's where we're going to go with it. And I really just think that LA was just a bad situation for him and it just didn't work out, which is unfortunate, but it's fortunate for us that he's here. So.
Yeah, you're unfortunately your audio is still a little messed up, but I mean we'll just deal with it. It's nothing you can do about it at this point. There's not a lot of time left. So
I've done it this way like several times before, and it's never had an issue. So I'm not really sure what's going on with it.
It's just super crackly. I'm not sure what the deal is, but moving on. Let's see if I don't know if we have any more football questions, but Cliff says wiggle your cords, Tim. That might help. Try to like mess with the port too.
There is no port. It's Bluetooth.
Oh, can you plug it in manually? Or are you doing it from your phone?
No, I can't. It's on my phone. I was trying to hurry up and get on the podcast and not have to deal with setting everything else up. So
that's fine. I mean, well, anyways, we'll live with it for the last few minutes here. But King Bookworld says he hasn't felt this level of comfort with the interior O-line in a while, and I tend to agree with him. We have an all-pro at the interior. When was the last time we had that? At least an all-pro. I know Kyle Long was a Pro Bowler. I'm not sure if he was ever all-pro, but he's probably the best interior O-lineman we've had since Olin. And, we haven't had an offensive line like that, and obviously since 2006 at least. So I feel a lot better about it too. I haven't felt as good about it, at least on paper, in a long, long time. We got two guys on the, between the left guard and the center who are established players who have played the last several years at a high, high level. And Jonah Jackson has history of playing at a high, high level. So outside of last year when he had injuries and played out of position. So, I feel pretty damn good about it too. I really do. This is a good spot. There was another football question in here. Actually, I almost missed it. Cliff wants to know, how's the offensive tackle battle looking? He's talking specifically about left tackle, who's getting the first team reps. That has been talked about a little bit from the reporters. I haven't been at practice myself, obviously, so I don't know. I can't tell you for a fact, but from what I've heard, and this is what Aldo is saying on the screen here, Karan got starting reps at left tackle and Ozzie backed him up. That's what I've heard as well, that Karan has been getting the starting reps at left tackle. But I also heard that there have been some alignments that they weren't exactly sure what teams were what. And I'm trying to think of what the examples were, because I think it was on Hogan Johns they were talking about it. Because at one point they had Case Keenum working as the number 2 quarterback, and they had at another point they had Bagent working as the number 2 quarterback, but they weren't exactly sure what all the alignments were and what the different teams were from the other position groups. So I'm not 100% exactly sure if Karan got all the first team reps at left tackle, but from what I understand, he has been getting those reps there as of right now, with Braxton being down, and Trapillo is been working with the second team from what I understand. So that's just to answer that question. I don't know if you have any thoughts about it, Tim, before you there's a bunch of questions in here about music. So I think we're out of football stuff. So let's dig into it if you're ready.
Yeah, that's fine. Let's dig in.
All right. So first one, King Bookerroll. This is a good question. He wants to know, what's the better version of Whiskey in the Jar, Metallica or Thin Lizzy? Now, normally I would tell you with cover versions, I almost always like the original better. Not always, but almost always. There are certain scenarios where I like the remakes better. You Really Got Me by Van Halen is a perfect example of that. I like it much better than the Kinks version. But Pretty Woman, I love both the versions of that song, both Roy Orbison and Van Halen. So it's hard for me to pick with that too. There's a lot of cover songs that I have a hard time picking the newer version over the original. But in this particular case, and it's really hard because I like the Thin Lizzy version a lot too. But I think I lean towards Metallica with Whiskey in the Jar on that one, but they're both really, really good.
I usually lean Metallica too, except, and I love their version, but I think I would prefer Bob Seger's version of Turn the Page better than Metallica's
I do too.
Version.
Yeah, I always like
almost their version a lot.
Yeah. I do too. The Metallica version of Turn the Page is good, but the Bob Seger version is a classic, man. That's just great song and a great version of that song. So that's a good question though, King. That's a really good song in and of itself, and I think I personally like that, just the Metallica version. And like I said, normally I wouldn't go for the cover version over the original, but in this case, I think I do. Another question from Cliff about best version of Baby Please Don't Go Down to New Orleans. Now that one I'm not quite as familiar with. I think I know who the original is. When you tell me this, I'm be like, oh yeah, I know that, but I'm not 100% sure. You'll have to remind us who sings the original and what the cover is you're talking about. And King Bookerworld asks another similar question about a better version of a song, a New Dawn, Fade's Joy Division, or Moby. I'm not real familiar with that at all either. You have to, I'll have to check those out, and I'll have to let you know for the next show. But I will definitely look into that, King Bookerworld, on that song as well. And obviously, Cliff, that's the other song. I'll have to look that up more as well too. But I know that song. I just have to. As soon as I hear it, I'm like, oh yeah. But Tim, are you real familiar with either of those? And do you have a preference for those songs? I'm not
familiar with the songs. I'm familiar with Joy Division and Moby. I'm not sure what the song that Cliff's was. I didn't see it, but you said it didn't. Yeah,
Baby Please Don't Go.
Not real familiar. Not that I can think of. I probably know who it is if I heard it, but I don't recognize the title. But I know the two bands that King Bookerworld's talking about. Well, Moby's not really a band, it's a guy, I will look into it for sure.
I'll tell you what, though, Cliff, it reminds me, my mom, when we were young, used to listen to this, I think it was a Bee Gees version of a song called Please Don't Go. And it was like this weird, like slower version. Like I think we told you guys last week, our mom grew up in like the disco funk era. So we have a real, I guess, an encyclopedia in our brains of that era as well. And so, yeah, there was that song, Please Don't Go. I think it was Bee Gees that my mom was a fan of. And I'm sure it's not quite the same thing because I don't remember him saying anything about down in New Orleans. But Cliff mentions Big Joe Williams in 1935, Muddy Waters after that. Those are the versions of the song he's talking about. I'll have to look him up. Muddy Waters is a hell of a guitar player, Cliff. Hell of a guitar player. Stones, AC/DC, Ted Nugent, etc. Did they all do versions of that song? Because if they did, shit, I'm gonna have to definitely check all of them out. But all great groups and artists there. Ted Nugent, another phenomenal guitar player. We've talked about AC/DC. I talked about them on Bare Their Souls a couple weeks ago. Love them. Both the Brian Johnson and Bon Scott eras. Great songs from both those singers. Malcolm Young and Angus Young, two phenomenal guitar players. Angus would tell you Malcolm was better, but Angus's solos are just fucking phenomenal. And I've told you guys before in the past, if you watch this show, that I think one of the top 5 greatest guitar players of all time, is Keith Richards from the Rolling Stones. So I love that. And Cliff, thank you. It was Casey and Sons that sang that song. Thank you. I almost forgot. Totally different song. I thought it was because, like I said, I don't remember that second part of it. But I will look that up, Cliff, and I'll let you know next week which version I like the best. But I'll check it out for sure. Thank you. I'm always thankful, guys, for bringing me new music to listen to. I got to listen to some more of this group that Tooch introduced me to a couple weeks ago called Futurama. I need to check them out some more too. But yes, definitely great stuff. I will definitely look into it some more. Some good discography though too. We were talking to you guys a little bit last week about Rush. I think it was last week we were talking about him and how Neil Peart. Tim and I obviously think Neil Peart's the greatest drummer of all time. But Geddy Lee. A lot of people would say Geddy Lee is clearly one of the better bassists of all time too, which he is. What's interesting about him is a lot of Rush's music he was playing the melody to, and the guitar part was kind of the harmony. But really, that's another guy too. Alex Lifeson is such an underrated guitar player, phenomenal guitar player. I mean, excellent guitar player. Just how good he was, and how the fact that he didn't necessarily get the credentials he deserved because of how good the other bandmates he had were in, or the other bandmates he had with him. It's kind of unfortunate, but I mean, yeah. You said something earlier, Tim, about you don't think, was it about me saying Led Zeppelin's the greatest band of all time that you disagreed with? Well, who is?
I don't know if there is a greatest of all. I would say if you had to pick one band that probably has had the most success and most people know, everybody knows a song or two at least, had maybe some of the greatest talent in it as well. Led Zeppelin probably top to bottom had maybe the most talent. I don't know, Rush is up there too, of the most talent amongst their band members. But I almost think you'd have to give Pink Floyd the nod just because of what all they accomplished. I like Led Zeppelin, don't get me wrong. And they used to be my favorite band when I was growing up. But I just think that it's a taste that not everybody has that taste in music, whereas I think everybody can get behind Pink Floyd, at least a song or two.
Yeah, not everybody.
Most people know Stairway to Heaven, but they don't necessarily know a lot of other Led Zeppelin songs. They only had one top 10 song ever. Not that means anything, and I love a ton of their music. I mean, I could name 50 songs right now of theirs that I know and love, but it's just, I don't know. They're not my favorite, certainly, and I don't think that they're the greatest of all time. I don't know. I'd have a problem not giving that to Pink Floyd over Led Zeppelin. I don't know. It's kind of weird for me. But personally, I would think it would lean to Pink Floyd.
Well, look, I mean, Pink Floyd is an excellent band. Don't get me wrong. I mean, I love Pink Floyd. Love Pink Floyd. I think they're a little more of a what's the word I'm looking for? More of like not an acquired taste, but they're more of a taste for some people. Not everybody likes Pink Floyd, and some people can't listen to Pink Floyd all the time. It's like they have to be in the mood for it type thing. Whereas in my opinion, Led Zeppelin, they have such a massive, enormous discography and music list, just from both their albums and their live shows, and they did that Coda album and things like that. They have so many great songs such a different variety of sounds as well. They could go from power to ballad form to anything they wanted to do. They could make that sound, and they were just they had an incredible group of musicians. In my opinion, Robert Plant is the greatest voice in rock music history. And
he's up there, but no.
And between his lyricism and Jimmy Page's lyricism together, they wrote such amazing music and lyrics behind it. Jimmy Page is one of the top 5 greatest guitarists of all time. In my opinion, he's probably number 2. John Bonham, we talked about this, probably number 2 greatest drummer of all time. And then John Paul Jones, he's probably the greatest bass player of all time. Just an unbelievable bass player. I know you might not agree with that, Tim, but I love it.
I definitely don't agree with that.
So
he's great, but he's not one of no.
But just I think they're the best for mostly because they were so good and they had such an amazing variety of music. And King, I agree with you on this one too. Stones are right up there with them because that's another group. They have such a variety and such a massive collection of great songs that like I don't know how you could like not like something by the Stones. And I agree, it is kind of a vibe with Pink Floyd. Whereas
this, he says that perfectly, the mood thing. And I was just going to tell you that my biggest reason in thinking that they are probably the greatest band of all time is because you can't listen to Pink Floyd's music without feeling something. It gives you a feeling that's inexplainable. It takes you to a place that words can't describe. And a lot of that is David Gilmour's guitar playing because it's unbelievable. You cannot have a top 3, top 5 conversation without putting David Gilmour in it. You just can't.
Oh, I agree.
I get that same feeling from some of the others. But I do get that from Pink Floyd, which is why I tend to think that way. And you're going to hate this, Jeff, but I'm going to say it. And I'm sorry, King Book World, I'm saying it too for you. But I think Mick Jagger is the most overrated musician in history.
Are you?
I don't think he's not a great singer. He was an excellent performer, which is what got them so much notoriety. But it's almost like, I'll put it this way. I'll put it this way. Maybe he's not the worst, but I'm not a big fan of Mick Jagger. It reminds me of, let's face reality, Guns N' Roses. You put any other singer other than Axl Rose, and they probably blow up even better than they were. Because Axl Rose was not a great singer, but his voice and that rasp kind of fit what they were doing. But you get him a better singer, and Slash is a phenomenal guitarist as well. I don't know. I'm not a big fan of Mick Jagger, so maybe I'm not the person to say that, and I'm not a massive I do love the Stones, but I'm not a massive Rolling Stones fan. And I do love a ton of their music, but I don't love all of their music. I guess if that makes sense. So
I see where you're coming from. There would be a lot of people, like if you had a vocal coach that was telling you, here's all these rock singers, and you put Mick Jagger in there, they probably wouldn't pick him out as like the greatest voice of them all. I understand that. But number one, he's a fucking icon. He has a good voice. It's not like he can't hit the notes. He hits everything.
I'm not saying that. I just don't think he's that great.
An on-stage performer, again.
Yes.
You don't miss nothing now.
He might be number 1 as far as performers go. He was a phenomenal performer.
And there's a reason they got a song called Moves Like Jagger, Tim. The dude can move. I mean, he's just.
I'm aware. That's what I just said. He's a great performer.
He is a good singer, in part of that too. Like again, he doesn't miss. He doesn't make mistakes on stage either. The guy is he's good. He's really good. And again, he's a phenomenal songwriter. He's still doing it. Phenomenal songwriter. They made so many great hits. and the guy that he's just phenomenal. Love Mick Jagger. So and King says basically the same thing I did. Don't agree with you, Tim, but get where you're coming from. Not the first time I heard that. And there have been other people who have said the same things. Yes. So I get where you're coming from, but just, yeah, I think that yes, that Mick Jagger is just, I mean, you're not giving him his credit where it's due, but in any case,
I did say he was a great performer.
Phenomenal performer. He's a really good singer too, Tim. He might not
He's an
be
okay singer. He's an okay singer.
He's good.
He's not Steve Perry. He's not a Freddie Mercury. He's not a Robert Plant. He's not a Chris Cornell. He's not anything like those guys.
It's not about his pure voice, though. It's about so much more than that. You know, when you talk about being a band leader and writing all these great songs and stuff too, it's all part of it. And yeah, those guys,
I'm not in disagreement.
Voice, all of them. I agree with you. I'm just saying, you know, Mick Jagger's the shit. And Brad mentions John Paul Jones being the best multi-instrumentalist. Yeah, he was really good. He played keyboard and all kinds of other instruments to get all kinds of sounds for Led Zeppelin as well. McFact mentions Jimi Hendrix, great. In my opinion, he's the greatest guitar player of all time. I think most people would agree with that. Tim doesn't think so, which leads me to my very next point. And before I get there, King Bookworld mentions Chris Cornell. Man, was he the dude. He is one of my all-time favorite musicians ever. I mean, he's probably my favorite singer ever.
Mine too.
Man, can you imagine him as the leader of the Stones, as King says here? That would be fucking crazy. Man, he'd do it though. That guy was.
Look what he did with Audio Slave. He took those guys from God, now I can't think of the freaking band name.
Soundgarden?
Audio Slave before Audio Slave. Rage Against the Machine. He took those guys and turned them into, because those were phenomenal musicians. Tim Comerford is probably guaranteed he's a top 10 bass player of all time.
Good as shit. Yeah.
Tom Morello is probably also a top 10 guitar player, at least top 20 guitar player of all time. And the drummer's pretty good too. But you take those guys and you put them with Chris Cornell, maybe, you can call me crazy, but maybe the greatest male vocalist of all time. And you're talking about a phenomenal band.
I think Chris Cornell, my personal opinion, I mentioned Robert Plant being the best. I think he's like right there. I mean, both of them have unbelievable voices. It's their vocal range too. They can go so low to so high. They can hit anything they want. And they had just such a range and a variety of sounds they could make with their voices. That was just, they're incredible. I will say this. I think I like Chris Cornell a lot better because Robert Plant's voice is a little whiny, especially when he gets the high notes. I'm not a huge fan of that, and maybe that's why I love Robert. Don't get me wrong, I love Robert Plant. He's a great guitarist too, by the way. I love his singing. He is a great singer. But when I'm looking at this, I'm thinking Chris Cornell is as smooth and you can't find a guy who is as the tone is as amazing as it was, that had the range and everything. And I see you guys talking about Johnny Cash. I love me some Johnny Cash. I love me some Johnny Cash. You like some country, Tim. If you like Johnny Cash, you like some country.
That's folk. That's not country.
It's a little country.
They're different. It's folk.
Okay, hang on real quick. There's a couple questions in here, but two things I want to say real quick. So King Book World mentions Temple of the Dog and Aunt Miss mentions Mother Love Bone. I am so glad you guys brought these two things up.
Chris Cornell.
Again, Chris Cornell. Let's back up a little bit. So here's why you guys are bringing this up in the first place. So Temple of the Dog, how it got its origin was because of this group called Mother Love Bone. They had a lead singer of the group, this guy named Andrew Wood, and he passed away in a drug overdose. Good friend of Chris Cornell's. Well, when he passed away, Cornell got together with the members of his band, the bass player and the guitarist. Stone Gossard is the name of the guitarist, and I cannot remember the bass player's name to save my life right now. Yeah. But they're both really, really good musicians, obviously. And their drummer, too, is they brought in the drummer from Soundgarden to play with them, guy named Matt Cameron. So he's really good, too. So anyways, they came together and formed Temple of the Dog, and they brought in another guy who you guys have to be familiar with. He's a big Cubs fan, and he was the lead singer of Pearl Jam. His name is, Tim?
Eddie Vedder.
So Eddie Vedder comes in with these guys also, and they had a couple hits with Temple of the Dog, mainly Say Hello to Heaven was the big one. And then they also had Hunger Strike, which is the duet between Chris Cornell and
Eddie Vedder.
Eddie Vedder, thank you. So that was awesome. Fell on Black Days, Cornell, King Book World, amazing. Shadows of the Sun, too. His vocal range in that song is incredible with Audio Slave. But Fell on Black Days is probably my favorite Soundgarden song. Just an unbelievable song. Excellent song. But going back to Temple of the Dog now. So once that was done, Cornell goes back to Soundgarden, and those guys stay together, and they form what is today known as Pearl Jam. So that's how Eddie Vedder stuck with those guys from Mother Love Bone. And Pearl Jam's another phenomenal band. Great.
By the way, Mike McCree also in that top 20 guitarist conversation.
Forgot about him. Yeah, he played guitar with them. He's
phenomenal.
For Pearl Jam. So, and he was
still listen to his solo in Alive. He is a phenomenal guitar player.
Yeah. So, great stuff. I mean, there's a lot of really good music in there we've been talking about. You guys have some good taste, man. I'm telling you what, because that is my kind of era of music as well. I love grunge rock. I mean, you guys heard me talking about Alice in Chains last week. Alice in Chains is my shit. I've got, listen to this, you guys. I've got Alice in Chains on vinyl, the EPs of Jar of Flies and Bucket, Sap, not Bucket. It's called Sap is the name of the album or the EP. They're 2 in 1. And it's really cool. Matter of fact, Tim, anything you want to say real quick? I'm going to go grab that so I can show these guys because it's a really cool little album if you guys haven't seen it before. Go ahead, Tim.
No, I just definitely grunge music. Love some Nirvana, which is pretty standard for that. But most people of the 80s, the hair band generation, hates grunge because they feel like 90s grunge stole their era. I'm sorry. And I kind of feel bad because I love hair band music too, but I love me some grunge, so I can't say anything. Yes, King Burkwell, Red Hot Chili Peppers is most certainly one of the most underrated bands. John Frusciante is a phenomenal guitarist.
Amazing.
Flea might be the greatest bass player of all time. He is phenomenal bass player. They're just a fantastic band. What's that?
Anthony Kiedis, damn good
yes,
singer.
He does. A fantastic voice, yes.
Yeah, Red Hot Chili Peppers, I love that. Under the Bridge is one of my favorite guitar parts. Californication is one of my all-time
The lyrics are phenomenal, too.
Great group. I love Red Hot Chili Peppers. I was just telling Tim the other day, his son is getting guitar lessons, that he needs to learn the intro to Under the Bridge because I want to hear him play it. But yeah, Cliff says Nirvana should be mentioned. You guys know my love for Nirvana. I mean, I've got a Nirvana poster. I'm all 2 Nirvana posters on my wall right now.
I did mention Nirvana, Jeff, already.
I've got a Nirvana album. Actually, I've got 2 of them. I've got their live album from MTV as well. But here's that album cover I was telling you guys about. Here's the Jar of Flies side, and then the other side is the Sap EP. I love these albums. These are phenomenal. They've got really good songs on them. Some of my favorite stuff by Alice in Chains is on here. Got Me Wrong is probably my all-time favorite Alice in Chains song, or at least one of them for sure. And it's on the Sap side. But lots of really good music from those. King Bookerworld mentioned Nutshell last week. That's on Jar of Flies. Great song. So, yeah, you guys are, like I said, you guys have phenomenal taste because I totally agree with everything you guys are saying. I love all that stuff. Red Hot Chili Peppers is the shit. Nirvana is amazing. Like I said just now, I've been talking about Alice in Chains. We were talking about Pearl Jam, Soundgarden, all great bands. So last couple questions in here, and I wanted to allude to this earlier, and I forgot all about it. But King Booker World wants to know if we all ever saw the George Harrison tribute to the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Yes, we did, King, and I'll tell you why I say that. Because
let me take this one, Jeff. Please let me take this one.
Just say real quick, though, Tim loves Prince. He thinks Prince is the greatest guitar player of all time.
I know. He is the greatest guitarist of all time.
Well, he's good. He's damn good.
There has not been another guitarist that plays solo, rhythm, and bass parts at the same time on an electric guitar. He's one of the only ones that can do that. It's probably the only one. He was a absolutely phenomenal guitar player. There was this quote from years ago where people, there's no validity to it as far as I know, but somebody supposedly had asked Eric Clapton how it felt to be the greatest guitar player ever, and he said, "I don't know. Ask Prince." Now, I don't believe that was a true statement that actually happened, but that's like a widely talked about quote. And I don't know. It's because Prince is so phenomenal and so underrated because he didn't play rock and roll. He played pop music. He was another similar to Mick Jagger, an entertainer for sure. But he's fantastic. I mean, just unbelievable guitar player. And it's hard if you guys, like King was saying, if you've seen that Rock and Roll Hall of Fame video there for the George Harrison tribute, they're all just like in awe of Prince when he's playing the solo, just totally in awe.
George Harrison's son is in the background playing acoustic rhythm guitar. He's going, yeah, he's like bobbing his head up and down, listening to it. It's like, dude, the guy who wrote the song, his son is like blown away by the way you're playing. It's so good. And as King Bookworld says, when Tom Petty tells you keep going, you know you got something going right.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
So I mean, that shit was that solo was amazing. And as I said in the chat, that wasn't even his style. Not at all his style. He killed it. Just killed it.
Yes.
Awesome. So, but yeah, I'm glad you brought that up, King, because Tim and I have definitely seen that many times, and it's fantastic.
Oh, and by the way, Prince's halftime show at the Super Bowl, greatest halftime performance ever.
Amazing.
Phenomenal.
And just so happened
in the rain.
Of course, during Purple Rain. I mean, that was really cool. But there's one more question in here from Aldo that was a really good one that I want to get to before we get
Let me answer that because I have it.
That's the only one. I'm going to say it first because I've been stewing.
Go ahead.
Meg White from the White Stripes. Probably the best female drummer of all time.
I like her a lot, yes. To me, it's the drummer for Skillet. Her name is Jen Ledger. She also sings harmony and some lead. She is phenomenal drummer. And she's pretty attractive. But phenomenal.
I never seen her. I mean, I didn't know that was I know of Skillet. I didn't know their drummer was a female, and she is damn good. Yeah, Carlos Santana's wife. I didn't know she drummed King Book World. I have to check that out. But my personal opinion, if you guys know the White Stripes, the obvious song is Seven Nation Army. If you're familiar with that,
Icky Thump is the best White Stripe song. Love Icky Thump. Icky Thump.
I don't know about that. I mean, Seven Nation Army is a classic, dude. Everybody knows that. So
yeah, go listen to Icky Thump. It's in. If you've seen Aquaman, the first Aquaman movie, it's in that. I love that song.
But yeah, she's a really good drummer. So that would probably be what I would say. But I'll have to check out some other ones as well that you guys are naming here. Cindy Blackman, Santana.
I did not know that.
He plays with Lenny Kravitz. Wow.
Yes.
He's another excellent guitar player that we haven't mentioned. But damn, is he good too? So. Yeah, wow, this is good stuff, guys. Thank you for bringing all this up.
That was news to me. I did not know that.
Yeah,
I did not know Cindy Blackman was his wife.
That is some good stuff. So I will check that out. Really good. I mean, great stuff tonight, guys. I mean, we're gonna, like I said, I want to start digging more into pop culture as we go along the next several weeks as the off season is rolling along here, just because I really enjoy this with you guys, and it kind of shows you a little bit of Tim and I's side as well. So. And thank you for putting this up, Aldo. If you guys have any questions for me, you got any recommendations about anything, you want to talk about anything in particular, please feel free to send us an email at any time, WillisTwinTowersPodcast@gmail.com. I will get on there, see what you guys have to say, and we'll try our best to implement it into the show. So we appreciate your input in that regard. Before we get out of here, excuse me.
You can also visit Jeff's website, penisland.com. You'll find him on there.
Hilarious. That was very original. But in any case, we thank you guys for being here as always. A quick reminder, like I said, to please like the video, subscribe to the channel. You can find us all on X or Twitter. I'm @_Jeff Willis. Tim is @TimWillis24. And you can find our executive producer, the awesome Aldo Gandia, and he is @Barroom Network. So check us out throughout the next several weeks, guys. We're every Friday night, and we have lots of content here on the channel. Until next time, we'll see you guys. Bear down.
Yeah, Bears.
The Willis Twin Towers podcast is a Barroom Network production. Jeff and Tim Willis are the co-hosts and co-producers. Aldo Gandia is executive producer. Music is licensed from Pond 5. Any copyrighted material used was done under the Fair Use Doctrine for commentary, criticism, and informative purposes. All of our programming is available in audio-only format by subscribing to the Barroom Network wherever you download podcasts. Videos are archived on YouTube.